Why do professional psychics, mediums, and Reiki practitioners, people with spiritual gifts, why do they charge for their ability to do these things that we can't do? I mean, if it's a gift, if God has allowed these people to connect with loved ones on the other side, to see into the future, to help us figure things out, to heal different illnesses and sicknesses, shouldn't that be readily available for free to anyone who asks? My name is Nicole Guillaume and I'm a psychic medium. Here on this channel, we talk about different things such as the afterlife, mediumship, psychic development, angels, guides, and so much more. And in today's video, we are answering the question, why aren't psychic readings or mediumship readings free? So before we dive into that question, I want to take you back thousands of years ago when psychics, seers, prophets, and healers were an integral part of a community. So you have to remember that many centuries ago, we all lived in tribes, and within those tribes, we had these spiritual communities. Usually within a tribe or within this community, there was one religion or spiritual belief that was seen as acceptable to the whole. And if you didn't necessarily believe in that belief system, there could be dire consequences. You could be excommunicated from your tribe. You could be hung for treason. There's all these different punishments that could befall you if you openly disagreed with the spiritual beliefs of that community. Now, within the community, you had your psychics, your seers, your healers, your prophets, and these were the people that were seen to have a direct line to God or to the gods. They were able to connect with the spirit world, and many of them were able to bring forth these phenomenal psychic and spiritual abilities, such as the ability to heal, the ability to manifest, the ability to interpret dreams with pristine accuracy. And these members, these sacred spiritual members, were kept away from the rest of the community. They lived in their temples. They lived in housing that was provided for them by the community. And so if you were a psychic, if you were a prophet living in that time, you would have had your own home, your own house, your own dwelling. It might have been a temple. Who knows what it was, but it would have been the place that you lived. And you wouldn't have had to worry about paying rent or paying a mortgage because this place was gifted to you by the community in return for your ability to provide psychic insight to them. On top of that, you not only got free housing, but members of the community would come and they would give you a portion of their harvest. So if there were people in that community that were growing different plants and different fruits and vegetables, they would provide you with a percentage of those every quarter, maybe every month, depending on how that harvest went. People who were raising animals, whether they were raising them for clothing or for food, they would give you a portion of whatever it was they were creating. So again, somebody who would have been raising sheep and using the wool to create clothing, they would be creating clothing for you. So you would get your clothing for free. You would get your food for free. All of your needs were met because they were donated to you by the community. So this wasn't exactly free, right, for any of them. So when you think about this free clothing and this free food and this free dwelling that the psychics and seers and prophets and spiritual leaders received during that time, it was actually in exchange for their spiritual abilities, right? So the whole community was saying, we will give you this if you in turn give us that. If you give us the spiritual insight and the spiritual physical healing and the dream interpretation and whatever else that we need, we will meet all of your needs. So it was this bartering system that was put into place. And the problem with that is that if you were a psychic or a seer or a healer, whatever your calling was, if you were part of that community and that was your calling, you didn't get a choice as to whether or not you wanted to live in the housing they provided to you. You didn't get a choice if you wanted to have chicken or steak for dinner, right? You took whatever was given to you. You may not have had a choice in the type of clothing that you wore. Now, I'm sure you could voice your preferences, but there was no guarantee that your preferences were going to be met. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the members of the community. So imagine that you live in one of these tribes where they are catering to the spiritual leaders, again, to the psychics, the seers, the healers, whoever that community is. And you live in this tribe, right? Your family members are there. You are somebody who is taking care of animals. You're raising them for clothing and for food. And you don't really believe in the spiritual beliefs of that community. Well, it would be very dangerous for you to speak up about that because it could be seen as treason. So you could potentially be jailed or stoned or whipped or hung or essentially punished for not catering to the same belief system as others in that tribe, as others in that community. So you would be punished. You might be ousted from the community. So you might be booted from the tribe. You'd be exiled. Again, you could be punished. So we won't go into the barbaric ways they punished people back then. You could be jailed. You could potentially, depending on the tribe, be killed. So it wasn't very popular and it wasn't recommended that you spoke up if you didn't believe in that belief system. And so I want you to think about that. Imagine how it would feel if you were in one of these tribes and you had no choice but to give 20% of the cattle that you raised or 20% of the fabric that you had woven. You had to give a percentage of what you were working hard for to these spiritual leaders who were teaching spiritual beliefs that you didn't believe in. In fact, maybe you didn't even believe in these spiritual leaders. Maybe you thought that they were full of baloney. You just thought there was something off with them. But the rest of the town, the rest of the members believed in the spiritual community, in their spiritual teachings and their gifts. And so you begrudgingly continue to give a portion of your belongings every month, every season, every quarter, every year, whatever the arrangement was. You gave a sizable portion of your belongings that you worked hard for to the leaders that were part of that spiritual community within your community. That would be kind of crappy, right? So let's fast forward to today. In today's world, it is no secret that people who have spiritual abilities aren't exactly revered anymore. We do not have communities that look out for us anymore. Now, if you go to a church or if you go to a synagogue in which prophets and psychics and seers and, pastors of some sort are looked up to, that's a little different, right? Because you get to choose the church that you go to. You get to choose the spiritual community that you're a part of. It's not as if you live in a city, I'm in the United States, so it's not as if you live in a city in the United States and once you live in that city, you are told what you're going to believe in and you have to give a portion of your earnings to the spiritual leaders within that church because that's what's been dictated, right? That is mandated. That is the law. We don't have that here. We have freedom of religion here in America, and thank God for that, right? And so the dynamics have changed, right? We had to come up with a new structure. And so since psychics and Reiki healers and spiritual healers and those who have the ability to connect to those on the other side are no longer catered to by the community, a new arrangement had to be made, right? Because let's be honest, psychics, mediums, prophets, seers, healers, whatever label you want to give someone who has a spiritual ability, lives in the same world that you do. They have to pay for their mortgage. They need to have a roof over their head. They also have to pay for their food. They have to pay for their groceries. They have to pay for gas. They have to pay for the electricity. They have to pay for the internet. They have to buy their own computers. They have to purchase their own cameras and light systems if they create YouTube videos like I do. There are a lot of things that we have to purchase in today's society in order for us to just live our lives, right? Living's not cheap. And we do not get these things for free. Mediums and psychics, again, they live in the same world you do. And they have to pay for things just like you do. It's not like we go to the grocery store and as the cashier is checking me out, I'm able to show her my super secret psychic mediumship badge, and all of a sudden she's like, well, I had no idea you're a psychic, honey. Go on through. It's on us today. We don't get that. We have to pay for our groceries too. And in addition to that, we also want to plan for the future. So we need to be able to put money in a savings account. We need to be able to pay for our insurance in case something bad happens to us and we get sick or we get into an accident. We need to take the same precautions that you do. And for those psychics and mediums out there who run businesses like I do, there's also that whole tax thing that people don't like to talk about. But when I'm charging you for a reading, you're of course paying for a session with me, but I have to be sure that I'm putting a sizable amount of that aside for taxes and for savings and for food, So a lot of people will make the claim that if you are a medium, if you're a psychic, you shouldn't charge for your gifts. But here's the reality. If we don't charge for our abilities, we can't pay for our own lives. If we don't charge, we can't give. And what that means is that if I stop charging for my services, if any professional stops charging for their services, whether they are a counselor, a psychic, a plumber, whatever service anyone offers, if they stop charging for that, what happens? They won't have a home to live in. They won't be able to pay for their food. And maybe for a short while, they are able to get along for free somehow. Maybe they're able to couch surf with a friend, but after a while, that friend's going to be irritated that they are hosting someone who is fully capable of working, but is choosing not to, right? They might be able to get on welfare or get on food stamps and provide for themselves that way. But then a lot of people will look at them and say, well, why are you doing that? You are fully capable of going to work, of doing this, and you could charge for your services. The thing is that if we don't charge for our services, we can become a drain on society, and we don't want that. Or we don't have our own needs met, and we don't want that either. And if our needs aren't met, we can't cater to you. So now here's the other part of the question, because I know this is what some of you are thinking. If you're a medium or a psychic and you have these abilities, can't you get another job like everyone else and then in your off time do this for free? Well, that's really unfair, isn't it? Because here's what that actually means. First of all, I want you to know that those of us who are professional mediums, psychics, or healers, we take our education very seriously. We also take our abilities very seriously. We want to offer the absolute best services to you that we can. And because we are passionate about providing you with excellent readings, with excellent Reiki services, with excellent insight, we need to keep our energy up. We need to continue to invest in our own education. So for us to be able to do that, we have to be sure that we are continually going to different seminars, that we are part of different developmental circles, that we're reading the appropriate material, that we're practicing with other people, that we have our own communities that we can go to when we need to bounce ideas off of other people, or when we have a difficult client, or we have a difficult reading, or we have a client that we just can't seem to help. right? We need to have those communities as well. And we also need to have our own healthy spiritual outlet. We need to be able to keep our education going. In addition to that, there is some discipline required in order for us to continue to offer you good services, right? And many of us who offer different spiritual services, we have a very disciplined practice in which we meditate every day, sometimes maybe even for hours. We pray often. We, again, read different spiritual books. And so this has become a lifestyle for us. But not only is it a lifestyle, not only is it something that we choose to do, it's something we need to do in order to keep our energy up and in order to continue to develop to be good mediums, to be good psychics, to be good intuitive leaders, to be good healers. And so there's a lot of time that happens behind the scenes that you don't see in order for us to be able to provide you with stellar services. And we're human just like you. And so there are times when we get sick and we can't keep our energy up, or other bills roll in and we have to take a break for a while. We have to take a back seat when it comes to our professional services. And maybe we run into a situation where we try to meditate and we just can't for a while, because we live in the same world as you do. We have emotions too. We have difficulties and challenges. And again, it's why it's so important for us to be able to charge for our services and charge enough not to just have our basic immediate needs met, but to be able to save for the future. Because for me, I do struggle with depression from time to time, and that's something I've been very open with. And when a bout of depression hits me, I am not good at delivering psychic services. And so I know that when that happens, I need to take a break from everything because I'm feeling burnt out or I'm too tired. But I just know that I can't provide you with the best services available. So what do? I close the door on my business for a while. I start to cater to me, because when depression hits, for me, it means something's off balance. And so I need to figure out what that is. I need to be able to have enough money aside in savings so that I can take care of myself so I can get healthy again. And then once I get healthy again, I can open up the doors to my business and start working with you and offering you the different services that you need. But I am driven by this desire to be not just good, but excellent in what I do. So for me to be able to do that, I need to be able to charge. I need to know that I am safe and secure in what I'm providing. I need to know that my needs are going to be met. I need to know that when I wake up tomorrow, I can pay my bills. I can be a functioning person in our society. I need to have that autonomy, right? I need to have a sense of agency, which means that I'm able to make choices for myself. And really, science has shown that when we have a good sense of agency, meaning that we can make choices for ourselves and we can choose what we're going to do for a career path, and we get to choose what we're going to eat, we get to choose what our routines are, we grow as people. Right? We grow as people, but we also make better decisions, and we are able to make our way through life a lot easier and with clearer focus, with a good head on our shoulders, right? And that's what we should want for all of our spiritual leaders and for all of our leaders in general. It's what we should want for anyone who's self-employed or anyone who's working for us or with us. This is what we should want for everyone. Right? We should want everyone to be independent. We should allow everyone the space that they need to make choices for themselves, to do what resonates with them so long as they're not harming others. We need to be able to foster that community for those in the spiritual field as well. So here's the problem too, is those of us who have offered things for free, who've done free readings, who've done free tarot readings, who've offered free mediumship reading, what will happen is if people aren't paying for those services, they come back over and over again and they become a drain. And many of us who offer psychic services do this because we like to help people. So when people come to us for our help, it's really hard for us to say no, even if they are draining. And so that's the other problem, is that if there isn't a monetary value, if there isn't a number placed on our services, people can take advantage, and they do. So being able to price our services also protects us from those people who would come back over and over again. And the people who do that, they're not doing it to be cruel, and they're not doing it to be mean. They don't mean to be a drain, but these are people who are either sincerely lost in their lives, or they don't want to take responsibility for their lives. These are people who are far too eager and far too willing to place their well-being and their responsibility for their own life into the hands of others. And that's a dangerous territory. And personally speaking, I don't want that much responsibility or even that much power or influence over someone's life. Now, I am happy to offer spiritual insight and advice and even my own personal opinion on things, but it's still up to you to make different choices and decisions for yourself. It's up to you to weigh your options and to determine what course of action is best for you. All I can do is be a guide, but I don't want to be responsible for your life. I don't want to be your cult leader, is what I'm trying to say. As you can see, there's a lot of moving parts to this question, and there's a lot of reasons as to why psychics and mediums and healers and intuitives don't charge for free. We just can't in today's society. And if we were to reincorporate that sort of a system where the needs of your psychics and seers are met, so there's some type of barter system put into play, that may not be healthy for everyone involved, because again, you're taking away the freedom to choose. So you create this community, and people who don't believe in the services your spiritual leaders offer, or they don't use those spiritual services, they're at a loss because they're still donating their time and their items and their hard work to those leaders. And the leaders may not want to live in that particular place, and they may not want to eat that particular food. They may want to travel, they may want to do something else. And so when you think about it, this monetary exchange is much better for all of us, because it means that we all get to make our own choices. You get to choose what spiritual leaders you're going to support. You get to choose what psychics you're going to place your faith in. You get to choose which medium resonates best with you, so they can be that gateway of communication to the other side. And in turn, we get to decide where we are going to live. We get to decide what type of clothes we're going to wear, what type of food we're going to eat, how much money to put in savings each month. Like, we all have a lot more freedom when we look at this new exchange, right? It works in everyone's favor. So I hope that this helps you to understand why mediums, why psychics, and why healers have to charge for their services. If we didn't, we would be in a really bad position, because otherwise we would be draining other people. Otherwise we wouldn't have our own freedom, or otherwise we would be completely drained from working a full-time job and then using the rest of our spare time, not with our families and not for our self-care, but for other people who are wanting to rely on our gifts and services. And while that last option may somehow seem more spiritual, it comes with a lot of sacrifice that isn't fair to the person that you're putting in that situation. It is completely unfair to say to somebody, hey, I want you to suffer for my well-being. I want you to do this work for free. I want you to make your availability open to me and other people so that we don't have to pay for your services. And if you're tired, you're tired. It doesn't matter to us, because you have this gift from God. And since it was given to you, we're entitled to that gift. It doesn't work that way, because here's the thing. You have God-given talents and abilities too, and they may not be psychic, but you do have talents that come to you more naturally than other people. And you have skills that you have acquired through practice, through repetition, through studying, that make it seem as if you're more natural at this specific skill. And you probably have some innate talents and interests that make you really good at developing the skill too. But the truth is, all of that took time, right? It takes your time, it takes your energy, and you deserve to be paid for that skill. You deserve to be paid for whatever vocation you choose. And we need to be willing to give that same right and that same consideration to our psychics, to our mediums, to our pastors, to our encouragers, to anyone who is offering us a service that helps us to better our lives, that brings peace to our mind and brings well-being to us. We have to be willing to support the people that are willing to support us. So, there you go. I hope that this answered your question as to why psychics and mediums and those in the spiritual world have to charge. And although I sort of touched on churches, I do want to say that your pastors and the staff that work at your church, it's the same for them. They don't get their groceries for free. You know, they might have people who donate to them, and there might be people within their city in different stores that give them a discount, but they probably still have to pay something for their home and for their cars and for their utilities. And so it's really the same thing goes for them as well. So give what you can when you can. And remember that the universe rewards us when we give. Whatever we give, we get back, right? So why wouldn't you want to give the spiritual people in your community what they need in order to survive, in order to thrive, in order to have their needs met so that they can help you get your needs met too, right? It's just common decency. So there you go, my friends. I hope this video is helpful for you. And if you would like to weigh in on this conversation, feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. I'm sure there's many of you who disagree with me on this, and that's okay. I would just ask you to remain respectful in the comment section. And for those of you who are intuitive and you've been wondering as to whether or not you should charge for your amazing abilities that you have honed in on, that you have been practicing, that you have been wanting to be more skilled at and more magnificent at, I hope that this video steered you in the right direction, and I have full faith that you know what direction that is, don't you? Of course you do. So again, my friends, thank you so much for watching here on this channel. I talk about a wide variety of issues, even ones that are insanely uncomfortable, but they all have to do with your spiritual growth, what happens with psychics and mediums, psychic development, that sort of a thing. If that's up your alley, hit that subscribe button. If this is your first time watching one of my videos and you would like to see more, then check out these videos over to the side. I'm sure there will be something there that you like. Also hit the bell icon so you can be notified when I release new videos in the future. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.